We are jumping back into it for matchup number 2 on the day today. And now we've got Connor with us. We've substituted out Tanner and we've still got CJ. Now, match number 2, Luminosity Gaming taking on Elyssar. I don't know, Cookies. These two teams, I feel like, we'll start with Luminosity Gaming. I feel like in pretty similar boats. High potential, high expectation teams, especially Luminosity. They're sitting in 8th right now when they were first last stage.
I think, like you said, Brim, they're coming to a realization that this league's for real now. It's not going to be easy to repeat, and it's going to be hard, tough sledding. Now, our highlight player here, Mr. Ferda, he has averaged a 1 point. Okay, I'm not going to say the exact. It's basically been 1.2, 1.3 plus in the past 4 games. He's been a monster for them. And of course, he had that moment that might define their stage here, depending on how tight the standings are at the end. He had that moment in 7-7 where he maybe he hopped off F a little too fast. But that kind of sums up the stage for this team. It's not like they're getting slapped around. Vertus played a good game up to that point, made one slight mistake, they lose out on points. And maybe they don't look as good on the standing as they should be, right? But they're actually a really solid team. I don't see anything about this team that like annoys me or I think they're limiki. They're just losing close games.
I mean, similar thing, Connor, when we look at Elyssar, they're 2-3, Luminosity's 1-4. The interesting thing that we do have to throw out here as we talk about Elyssar here is every team has like 2 wins and then 2 or 3 losses because rent free and they've just been cleaning up everyone.
See, that's exactly what I was about to say, because for Elyssar, they do already have their one shot as well as their rent-free games out of the way. So, I mean, that means everything's kind of on an uptick, and especially when you see how this team has been playing, their consistency across the board, just kind of fragging potential, everything about this team is once again on that upward swing. They look better week after week after week. And when you have a new player like Wimpy coming in off of the back of a Pro League season that was successful, that's always going to happen. And kind of the only consistency that we've seen, the only player that's really popped off week after week, even in those massive losses to the rent frees and the one shots, has been Enrio. And Enrio's back on a little bit more of a fragging role. We've seen him drop to a support. He filled in Arrow's role off of investigation file late registration era. And now he's back on the Yana and he's looking like the old Enrio of the Slaughterhouse era.
Well, it's actually been nice to see his growth over this time, because Enrio was the type of guy that could pop off one game and then maybe disappear the next, but he's had a lot more consistent efforts. Maybe he's just really found his footing on this team. Now, Cookies, 1-4, but you said it hasn't looked that bad for Luminosity. There is a silver lining in their performances.
Okay, so it's like when you see a team's 1-4, usually you're like, geez, they must be doing a lot of things horrifically, terribly wrong, right? Like, we need an emergency VOD review to figure out what's wrong. It's not even like that. It's like they've lost 7-5. 7-4 loss where all the rounds were close, even in a 7-4. 8-7 loss, like I talked about earlier. It's like, it's not like the strategy isn't sound. It's not like the players aren't good. Like, it's not like that. I think it's a mental warfare game with this team. You got younger players, right? There isn't really a dad figure on this team, to be honest. If there is, he sucks at it. I think they're all young. They're all just maybe a little emotional. Sometimes you see Asian come in chat, say crazy stuff. Asian's probably a first-round draft pick talent next stage, so he's probably thinking in the future. It's just like they've got a lot of this and that going on, and I think that's kind of the issue. But it's also just, it's not like they're terrible. They've got fixable issues, and maybe they fix it today.
Well, they are. You look at that, and although they're 1-4, 2 of those are overtime losses. We could have very well be looking at a team today that's 3-2, except it didn't quite go that way for them. Connor, on the flip side with Elyssar, what are you looking for them to, well, we said they're on a bit of an upswing, to continue that upswing and get some more points?
Yeah, the biggest thing to focus on with Elyssar is their attacks, because this core 3, the Enrio, Giddy, and Vivid, they've always been insanely sound defensively, but the attacks is where they're a little bit too slow and methodical. And after watching Playdays 1 and 2 of the rent-free and one-shot game, I thought we were going to be going back to like Siege 3 years ago, where nobody really held the shift key at all and there was no urgency. And now when we're going up for Elyssar, going up against a team like Luminosity, who is struggling on the defensive side with, I think, only like a 48% win rate, this is the opportunity for them to really show that, yes, I think that their attacks have improved, because week to week they have been getting better and better. Wimpy slotting into certain roles well, Enrio just getting more and more consistent. They've looked a lot better. And speaking of those defenses a little bit earlier, with the side of just the historic core of this roster being strong defensively, all they need to do is just stay disciplined. They need to sit behind their shields and be good little boys and girls, just staying patient, because Luminosity, we know they like to play for picks. They like to get that opening kill and kind of play off of it. If you give them nothing, their attacks are going to stutter.
Okay, now don't freak out. I'm going to break the mold here. Connor, I'm going to stick with you on the right as we move into the map ban stage. I know, just try to keep up. I need you to talk about it right now.
I will indeed. Where Villa, pretty much the auto ban for the side of Elyssar. Clubhouse, once again, kind of removing all of the nice, fun equalizer maps for Luminosity, even though it might favor them a bit more. Kind of the Villa Skyscraper border on the side of Elyssar, that makes sense. Those are their most highly banned maps. Skyscraper and Villa, 100% auto bans. You're never going to see them go anywhere. And as we finish up, we're actually going to go all the way to Oregon, which is kind of the map that the ATK Luminosity gaming team won last stage of CL by heavily crutching upon. Meanwhile,
is that something that you see happening here again? Do you see Luminosity leaning hard into this map?
I think they might, but Elyssar is a core that is still strong on this map. They barely ever ban it. It's kind of the map that gets banned against them, and if it isn't banned against them, it goes through to the played cycle. So it doesn't make really any massive surprise to see us going there.
Your thoughts, CJ?
I think it's home for both of them, right? It's a neutral site game right now. There's no oh my gosh, Luminosity has advantage for Elyssar. It's who's got the better fundamentals today. Who, like I said, for LG, who's got their head in the game. I talked to Vivid last night. I was like, Vivid, man, thoughts and prayers for tomorrow's match? He's just like, nah, I'm just kind of chilling. I'm confident. And on the side of LG, and they've got problems that are just out there in public, right? Retweets getting retweeted that shouldn't have been. It's out there. This isn't some secret leaks. This isn't Leaker R6. It's out there. So who's got the cleaner mental today going into this game? It's going to be a really straightforward one.
Okay, throwing up the predictions. Connor, what are your thoughts? And it seems like map does not sway your mind in this situation.
No, I think it's a pretty even thing, and all of us have a insanely similar mindset to seeing that Elyssar has already made the steps of improvement. They're just going to try to continue this, and Luminosity are just another hurdle in their way of maybe trying to confirm one of the playoff spots at the end of next stage. Meanwhile, Luminosity, we know that they could bounce back at any moment, but it's kind of too nerve-wracking, a little bit too risky to go ahead and play that card.
Okay, wait. Before I throw to you, CJ, here's what I'm saying. I'm looking at this. I'm seeing 68s for you two, 64 for me. I want to balance this out a little bit here. And Luminosity has had 2 weeks right now to sit, get everything together. This is much the same team they were in stage one. I'm going to be switching my vote, CJ, to Luminosity.
Well, you're crazy.
Okay, call me crazy. I think there was a time, was it last stage, where I made a similar pick that everyone called me crazy. I went off the board, and I was sitting here laughing after.
I appreciate the production value you've added by not making it monotonous and monogamous here. But it's simple. I think Elyssar is more complete. I think Vivid's going to have them ready to go. And this is their place. This is their home field. Sure, you can say the same thing for LG. But I've already pleaded my case. I think this is an Elyssar game.
Do you think, Connor, although that this map specifically is even for these two teams, do you think that either of these teams maybe had a better map pool that they could have made more out of this map ban to take it in their favor, and yet they let it go to an even split?
I think both these teams have a pretty similar map pool, except I guess maybe the back pocket cafe that Elyssar does have, and maybe, because that didn't go into play, is what it is. But, the Oregons and the clubs, those are kind of what you would expect to see coming out of these teams, and it's what happened. I think that both of these rosters probably knew as soon as the schedule was being played, of looking, they're like, yeah, we're probably going to be going to Oregon in week 5, Playday 5. It just makes sense.
Okay, and CJ, just before we get into it here, one final question for you. If it's going to be a win for Luminosity, what is it going to take for this team? And do you think for them to win, it's going to have to be a squeak out? Do you think there's any possibility they win in regulation?
I think part of the reason I'm kind of sleeping on them is just, Asian hasn't played as well as he started out the stage. It's been kind of some stinkers.
Mhm.
We're talking about first round draft pick here, and he's, Mr. NFL. He's just kind of been average over the past couple games. Entry numbers aren't what you would expect for a guy who's supposed to go straight to the league. That's been Dexter. It's been guys like that. It's not been Asian. So he has to pop off. These Silent Ends. You already said Silent Ends was a top 5 player. CL. Need that today. Need it. Otherwise, they're not winning this game. And that's the God honest truth. Verda's been consistent. I liked it. Other than the whiff R6. I think the others got to step up and they win potentially, but I think it's more of Elyssar personally.
And I'll get some more final thoughts from you, Connor. Between these two teams, who do you think this 2 weeks off has benefited the most? Which of these two teams do you think could make the most of that free time to work on their abilities, their skills, their teamwork?
That is indeed hard because both of these teams are in a very similar position that they were underperforming. We know that they can do well at the beginning of the stage. Both of them brought in an insanely talented player for Luminosity. They brought in Asian. Everybody knows first round draft pick. Oh my gosh. And for Elyssar, they brought in Wimpy. So they're just kind of all adjusting with just a couple of players here and there coming in, new roles, stuff like that, as well as a good support structure. Kill Hungry on the side of Elyssar as well as Wayfair on the side of Luminosity. They've got the coaching support. So I think 2 weeks out of kind of all the teams in Challenger League should benefit these guys the most. It's kind of hard to hit the coin flip of which one really benefited a little bit more because we're probably going to have to see that in the server.
Well, we are waiting for just a couple more players to get in. So what we'll do right now is flip to a quick 2-minute break. Hopefully we'll have the players in there by that time. And when we come back, we'll be going straight to the casters for this matchup.
All right, we've got everyone in the lobby, and we are good to get started. Game 2 of today, Luminosity, Elyssar. This one should be good now that we're going to Oregon, fellow.
Absolutely. I mean, Luminosity, this was their best map in Stage 1, and this is the first time I think they've played it all together in Stage 2. When I was looking back when I had all that free time on my hands because, you know, we took a long break, all of us here in CL, I was like, oh, I wonder what map, you know, TTK and Luminosity played on each other. And when I went in the off-stream VOD, it was Cafe, and I was like, wow, it makes perfect sense why they lost. This is their worst map. I mean, that has been one of the small reasons I feel personally why Luminosity has been also losing out on a lot of map wins and not being able to close out in certain positions, not just the mental and not just small minute stuff like stalling way too much in positions. It's just going on uncomfortable maps. Don't get me wrong, trying out new things, I'm always down to watch that, always down to see that happen, but sometimes you gotta find, you know, the line in all of it. You got to know when to kind of cut yourself off and go back to what you know you're good at. Start bringing out those chalets, start bringing out the organs, and that's exactly what we're seeing here today by Luminosity and Elyssar, which both these maps are fantastic for them. So I think this is going to be a grand best of one, despite this map being considered pretty boring by everyone that doesn't really play competitively.
Right. I mean, both of these teams going back to their roots, going back to Oregon, a map that they should both know, and maybe not love, but they should both know it well, and they should know how to play it well. And that should potentially alleviate a lot of the issues that especially Luminosity have been having over the past few playdays. Luminosity coming in as one of the maybe favored teams, right? New org coming into Siege, very exciting stuff. Their only win came on that first playday. They've had very, very close games since then. 2 overtime losses, 8-7 both times in back-to-back weeks. But the point is, they haven't found a game in the win column. They just haven't been able to make that happen. Oregon is hopefully the territory where they'll be able to feel a little bit more comfortable. They'll be able to get the map control that they've been struggling with in a variety of different territories over the last few playdays. But Elyssar, in the same vein, this is a map that should really work well for them. They should also know it well, and they should probably feel quite comfortable here, especially that these bans have shaken out probably exactly the way they expected. They threw in a Ying ban, which is probably the only ban that isn't copy-paste from every standard Oregon you're going to see, but it isn't far off. A Ying can be very threatening, especially when attacking that basement site.
I really like that small pickup as well by getting rid of the Cade. You don't need to force a Maverick pick pretty much on any site now, unless you just want the extra grenades, but there's plenty of other operators that can fit that same niche of just bringing frag grenades. So it's a nice little quirk that you just don't have to worry about now on either side. So it's a little things that really go a long distance. But yeah, in terms of explosivity, just in terms of getting a fast execute, Ying is a great operator to actually facilitate that, especially on Oregon. This is probably one of her best maps altogether. So glad to see that ban as well. I agree with you. I concur, Jonah. But first map here, or first site, sorry, in play for the map of Oregon, that being the basement one, looks to be a pretty standard lineup altogether. Interested to see Giddy actually bringing the Warden out here, so maybe you'll see more of these ADSs placed in slightly different positions to just allow more of the map to have that util denial, and then Giddy might have less stuff like those magnets ADSs placed near him because he can just kind of face check those flash grenades and not be all that concerned because he has a smart glasses in. With no Candelas, it's not really a gigantic threat. You're just expecting those flashes to come towards you, and then you can expect a nade after, allowing you to fall back. So I like the selection. It's definitely nice.
Yeah, you throw the zombie into the mix as well, and that always catches my eye. I love the way that teams have been using those Kiba barriers to innovate in not only where they're positioning, but how they're playing a particular position. Do they save those Kiba barriers for the late round and try to adjust at the last minute? Do they double up on an existing deployable shield to bolster a position, or do they place them all down immediately and just run all over the map trying to find kills? Looks like Wimpy is saving a couple now that the deployable shield in Elbow got destroyed, and well, now that Luminosity are getting really close to actually pushing this site really early in this round, Wimpy is likely going to save these last two to deploy once that execute actually starts.
If need be, you could maybe put a new Kiba barrier over near Elbow, and yeah, Wimpy goes to do exactly that, so you can still hold that position pretty comfortably despite just losing out on that shield. But again, there weren't many ADSs there because Giddy's probably going to be the main guy holding that area in the final moments of the round, so doesn't really need a lot of ADSs because he has those smart glasses to deny flash grenades. Luminosity, though, they're not jumping the gun despite breaking a plethora of utility in that first minute. They still want to clear out the map properly. They still want to get those hatches open. Ash having to do his job on the Habana eventually once enough of the map is cleared out, and then they can set themselves up properly to go in for that execute to burn through all those ADSs and only have to worry about those Kiba barriers. Basically just as those inflatable shields, as the only main shield has already been destroyed, like we mentioned earlier.
But that comfort on Oregon that you mentioned, John, that Luminosity have, I mean, we're already seeing it in full effect, right? They're already blitzing all over this map. They secured firm control of that top floor within seconds. We saw how Silent was already running down towards the freezer to take care of that camera and to take care of any additional utility, get a drone in position. That kind of movement really only enabled when you know what you're doing and when you feel that you have a pretty good handle on what the defense is doing to counter you.
Ash opening up one of those back walls, but it actually gets shot, so someone can still play close on that barrel doorway if need be. So far, though, Vivitch is playing close to Harry Potter. He can reposition, though, if he gets droned out, but at the moment, he's waiting for someone to aggressively swing down backstairs, maybe throw out a toxic smoke, and just waste those valuable seconds, because at the moment, there's only 40 left here for Luminosity to make a play.
And all 5 Elyssar defenders sitting on the site, as you can see, waiting for this execute to actually come through and effectively using their utility to slow that down. Toxic smokes going towards the tower stairs, denying that push down into pillar that Luminosity are hoping to get done. Ferda, though, pressuring from the other side. Surprises young Alec just a bit. Now it's going to be another spring into action from Luminosity. Silent picks up 2 back-to-back. Giddy will secure that trade, but now he finds himself alone in a 1 versus 3. Flashes come his way, but he is a warden after all, so he'll be fine to see through it. Can't see through the bullets, though, as those find his head in an instant as he swings out from that position. Well done from Luminosity, just blitzing it on in there at the last second, taking care of that defense like it was nothing.
And Ferda doing tons for his team altogether. We saw in the first minute, he already forced Elyssar to slightly change up how they were playing, putting in new Kiba barriers to actually remove out some of those exploded shields that we saw in the very beginning of round number 1. So already burning through tons of vital utility, a great start for them. And he found the entry on top of 2 other kills with that AR-33. I mean, you can really not stress how effective he can be, put in the right positions. We saw Silent as well, dealing tons of damage with that LMG, getting the buddy ace as well, as he found the only other 2 kills in that round. Altogether, the coordination and the timing of that push, it seemed just right since Elyssar, for the most part, they were in those key positions, but they were still getting flushed out just enough where they had to give away too much, allowing Luminosity to make that proper first move.
Well, something that Luminosity have, and this is something we hinted at earlier, John, something that they've been struggling with so far this stage is map control in general. And they found themselves in that awkward spot where if they go for the full clear and try to secure that map control, time becomes a problem. But at the same time, if they go for more direct takes, they're just not getting enough control where they're denying any flanks and denying any defensive surprises. That's something that's going to be pivotal for them to maintain on this map, and it should happen pretty easily given the way this map is structured, and again, given how standard this map has become in competitive Siege. Luminosity should be able to limit those flanks while also taking firm map control. It's something they were able to do very successfully in that first round from the get-go. We saw how much map control they had, and we're already seeing that again. Vertical pressure being applied here by Kixro onto young Alec's position over in Kitchen. Wimpy there to support young Alex, gonna have to be careful as well, because if he doesn't dip down those freezer stairs, that pressure from up top could be deadly. But as I say that, Wimpy, well, he hits that Uno reverse card, a C4, right onto the toes of the sledge to send him sky high.
And Elyssar, all they do is fall back. They've worked the entry, and they've wasted a minute off the board for Luminosity as well. A really strong start for the defense. And I like that mirror play, trying to force the hand of Luminosity even more so than what we saw with a very lackadaisical clear altogether in round number 1. It forced Luminosity to take that top floor and, again, waste time and some resources as well, where Elyssar, they were able to get out pretty much scot-free. Young Alec, only lost a little bit of HP, but got back to the site. They still have that man advantage, and now Luminosity are still trying to scramble to once again get those hatches opened up and go for that exact same burn that we saw last time when Laundry was in play on round 1.
Yeah, getting that burn early was key because it allowed Luminosity to pressure from either that Freezer side or the Pillar side. Kind of whichever one, they found themselves having more angles, right? More opportunities. That kind of early pressure allows you to make last-minute choices that you might not be able to do otherwise. And right now, Luminosity are beginning to pressure from these multiple positions, as we've talked about. And Elyssar, well, they're beginning to realize that they're going to have to counter it. Vivid hanging on to these smokes for now, but eventually, he's going to have to send those toxic babes towards that staircase. Otherwise, this push is inevitable.
A grenade toss, but it's more or less a dud because no one's playing directly in Pillar. Someone in that rack corner and another player as well up in that single wall to help assist Vivid, because if he's here by himself, he could get dogpiled so easily by Luminosity once they work down in that first floor in places like Blue Bunker, and also the E-Box drop. But he has plenty of assists from his teammates. But as I say that, Ash just drops down and finds the first kill.
Yeah, here comes this push. They just send it down the E-Box hash, and Ash goes 1 for 1, but Giddy, he's still around. Big kill onto Ferda. Asian getting torn apart here. Silent's gonna have to go big. That's 2 big kills, but needs to find 2 more and has himself stuck in a crossfire. Doesn't know which way to look, doesn't know exactly where these swings are gonna be coming from. A pre-fire onto young Alex secures that kill, but Silent is simply out of time. Elyssar will equalize.
And a great amount of patience as well by Elyssar. We saw them fall back early into that round. They already wasted enough resources against Luminosity, and we saw that slight stall where eventually they had to just kind of go for a Hail Mary play down the E-Box hatch. Elyssar had all of their eyes locked into that one position, and they were very strong in terms of getting that trade, especially since they already had that man advantage from their decent play on that middle floor extension altogether. It was a good attempt by Luminosity, even bringing things down in the 1v1, but again, because we saw that extension up above, because there was just a little more time wasted in comparison to round number 1, it went such a long way, and it forced Luminosity out of a potential second round win.
Silent nearly had that, though. I mean,
so close.
Came as close as you possibly could without... with just missing out on it in the end. But man, looking good there, getting a couple of critical kills that his team just could not find before they all perished. But Ash was actually the first player to initiate that drop down, and good that we brought that up because Ash is a player that we're gonna have to focus on today. Subbing for Eddie on the side of Luminosity, so always got to pay attention to how those subs mesh with a roster, what exactly the role is that sub is going to play, if it causes Luminosity to change things up in a big way. Right now, you know, through 2 rounds, seems like that is meshing just fine. Obviously, we saw the trade game played pretty well with Ash in that last round, as Ash got that kill coming down into the E-Box position, and then Elyssar traded it back, but then Luminosity had a couple of frags right behind, so the coordination was definitely still there, but something we're going to have to keep an eye on.
And especially because Vivid was able to lock out one portion of the map that last round, that being backstairs, everyone just had to solely focus in on E-Box essentially because Giddy was watching the Blue Bunker doorway as well. So again, really good team play and really good job of forcing those choke points to be stomped out of Luminosity's hands, despite them thinking they're in a good enough spot to get the job done. Good stall once again, having that key barrier to make sure we actually see that mute jammer up and alive for a little bit longer. A second one being deployed as well, and Ferda is just not having any of it, wasting both of his explosive lifelines to get this window opened up and have that strong cutoff angle, and eventually a grenade underneath will break down that mute jammer, allowing the Habana to do her job once again.
Looked like that may have delayed a bit of utility, forced some of that to be wasted, and kept the defensive utility up for a bit longer, but seems that Luminosity were unfazed and dealt with it pretty quickly. The final Kiva barrier will go out and try to stall out any push coming from that trophy side of things, but again, I don't believe that Kiva barrier is going to last very long, as Luminosity using this utility very effectively, very efficiently, and they're actually going to find a kill as well onto Giddy, who, after using those Kiva barriers, I guess felt that it was time to take a fight and ended up losing his life. But not a huge deal, given that his utility, main purpose in the round, had already been utilized. However, that's a body you're not going to have when it comes to the execute, so Elyssar got to be careful.
Finally, that back wall getting opened up as well. But as of right now, no one has rotated around to go in for that multifaceted approach. We still have everyone, for the most part, playing over near Master, but now Silent getting ready to maybe hop in through big window and Asian creeping his way up white. This could be the play that Luminosity need to close this round out as a win.
Oh, good C4 though from Vivid, but Luminosity are unfazed. 3 kills back to back, leaving young Alec out to dry, and Ferda takes his head clean off without a moment's notice. An explosive finish again from Luminosity. They'll hold on to this lead.
And we saw the potency of that Nook. Wimpy, of course, expecting someone's going to walk up white in the final 40 seconds. He's playing in security, also able to play for the vertical in case someone hops in through a big window, but that player was already dealt with. So for the most part, had to worry about someone going up through Z hallway / that security hallway. But because Asian was on the Nook, he was completely silent. He was not visible to any information that was put in that direction, and he was able to catch Wimpy sprinting, moving back upstairs perhaps just at the worst time possible, and still the rest of Luminosity were just slowly collapsing in on the bomb site from both that wall, which eventually got opened up near closet, and also the deer doorway. It was just the perfect recipe for disaster on the side of Elyssar, and they just slowly got choked out. But we did see a lot of adaptability on the second attempt for Laundry for Elyssar. I could imagine we see that exact same adaptability, just this time on the top floors. It will be a reattempt by Elyssar once again.
Yeah, they went Laundry twice and they won it the second time. Now we're seeing Dorms back to back, and maybe that'll be what Elyssar need to, well, take another defensive victory here. Changing it up by putting Wimpy on the alibi. Not something you see very often in terms of a utility-focused adjustment, but at the end of the day, you bring a deployable shield. So that's a very impactful piece of utility, even if your primary gadget isn't the greatest thing in the world. And hey, if you get a ping or two onto attackers as they work their way in the building, well, that's a nice bonus. But the thing is, going to the same site twice is always a consequence that Luminosity will probably know exactly what they're walking into, at least for the most part, and they should be able to start off the round just as fast, if not faster, than the one before.
Seems like for Luminosity, they want to try something a little different. They acknowledge they had a lot of their time burned up over some silly stuff, so they're already going to try to move themselves up over near big tower, small tower, sorry, and also near big window, the other call it with the word big in it. Asian is playing already inside of dining room, and the fact we don't have anyone extending all that far out besides Wimpy, the pressure for grenades, it definitely seems likely unless we have Wimpy able to hold down the fort for quite some time. He also has the option to have Inrio back him up if the call needs to be given, but as of right now, he's over more near the full basement side, maybe their Laundry stairs, and across the ways, we have Fur to win that first entry, and Vivid quickly responds, Zofia now gone.
Yeah, making sure to secure that trade onto Ferda once he knew that position on the rappel. Quickly taking that fight and winning it. Inrio on the follow-up as well. Will remove the sledge of Kixro, and a big kill on the other side of the top floor. Wimpy on the follow-up takes down Asian, who tried to get a bit too sneaky for his own good, and just like that, talk about those changes Elyssar made. Well, those changes have worked. It's a 4v2 favoring the defense.
Still a little bit of time to work for here by Luminosity, but they only have a couple of flash grenades and one drone left as well, unless there's, one dead one across the map. It's in an important spot, but doesn't really seem like it. Luminosity opting to work their way up Armory stairs and just hoping that Elyssar overextended, maybe give them a couple of free ones, especially since Silent still has that LMG, and at least a portion, a singular kill hole has been made with those Extaris charges, so it does allow one new line of sight, and now with the Mute Germ being gone, it can fully get opened up, so another entryway as well for Luminosity.
C4 was used to deny pretty much nothing. It was just poorly timed, but Vivid doesn't seem to mind. He'll pop out and get a kill anyway before being eventually traded. We'll lose Asian, but he was already dead, so it's still going to fall on the shoulders of Silent. And, well, now he's got to find 3 players. Not looking too good as he has to recover this diffuser, and he finds himself on 1 HP without any Thinka boosts. With only 20 seconds to work with and 3 full HP defenders who can sit back and take their time. Not looking promising. Giddy behind a Kiba barrier will just continue to dart back and forth. Good pre-fire from Silent, who's trying to finish out the round with a couple of nice kills, but hey, maybe save that KD. Get a couple more kills, but it simply won't matter. Another almost identical finish to the basement site that they ended up losing because Elyssar will find a way to equalize, and Silent finds a way to stay, I believe, deathless. I think he's still 8-0.
Pretty impressive stat line altogether. Haven't seen too many demanding rounds by Luminosity altogether, except maybe their first round as is, because they pretty much did everything perfectly. They wasted not too much time when they were clearing out that middle floor, not even needing to worry about anyone over in the second floor, for example, roaming their kids on that laundry attack. They got the hatches open at a good time. They were all set up in a good spot, and they timed their execute very well. But last round in particular, they seemed very, I guess discombobulated would be a pretty good word to describe it. They knew what they still had to clear out, expecting Wimpy to be on that extension, maybe someone prowling about on that basement floor, but just trying to focus on multiple things at once just didn't really seem like a great idea, whereas last time Luminosity just only focused in on Master, and although it took a lot of time to eventually get that wall opened up, it worked, and then their late round rotate did more damage to Elyssar than it did themselves. And once again, Elyssar just able to readjust and get a good read as to how Luminosity were going to play on that round. It worked like a charm, and once again, we're equalized now, this time heading to the tertiary bomb site of Meeting Room.
Yeah, we're just working our way all over this map, and, you know, if the pattern continues, Elyssar will lose it, and then they'll win it, and I guess we're all fine and dandy, tied at 3-3. At least for now, we're tied at 2-2, and we'll have to see exactly how these next two rounds transpire, but no question that Elyssar are continuing to just rotate the bomb sites. They could head down to the basement again, right? They could try to change something up, but it's going to be to the tertiary bomb site we go. A site that depends heavily, and it looks like Elyssar agree with me, on a top floor extension or hold of some kind. We've got some utility being set up above in attic, in dorms, and kids, and we've got Asian now, who may be looking to counter that aggressively on the Amaru.
Don't really blame him. It's a good way to get a lot of the map in your pocket almost for free. Just one simple Gara hook, and you are already in the building. Asian wasting little to no time. Seems like the rest of his team wants to kind of join in the fun just across the map, maybe trying to head their way in through lobby at the very beginning of this round. Not a bad idea. If you can get that top floor pressure early in the round, it just leaves that site presence and maybe a light extension in security, for example. And depending on what site you want to attack, it might be better to actually go in through, for example, kitchen. But it seems like with the, you know, Osa in play and still a regular hard breacher, we might still have that stage play happen just because how much coverage those talent shields can provide put in the right spots.
Well, Luminosity looks like they do want to clear out this top floor as they work their way in from multiple sides and go for a little bit of a pincer maneuver. Asian will be the first one to strike, though, as Giddy finds himself in a bit of trouble and finds himself on the receiving end of that LMG. Silent now, another LMG will collect a kill just fine. Can he find another? Yeah, no problem. Easy double kill, as all he had to do was hold left click as he finds his 10th and now 11th kill. Still has not died yet. Silent looking to continue that streak to hunt down the final player, but he can't quite do it. He's delivered his first death, and Wimpy finds 2 big kills on the board. He's gonna have to ace clutch, though, if he wants to finish this one out. He's staring at a shield in his face. He doesn't have much options, and, well, quickly it'll be finished off as Luminosity will take his life from above. So got a bit messy there in the end, but a very clean round overall from Luminosity as they continue this back and forth streak, and they're up by 1 round yet again.
And good aggression by Luminosity altogether, taking really the whole map by storm in that top floor. Asian, at the very least, he got that entry, and he also was just holding a very important cutoff angle. There aren't too many places you can fall back from when you are actually extending up above. Maybe that drop down in through attic hatch, for example. A lot more teams have been opting to actually reinforce that, so just going in through the rotate in power in big tower sometimes is a better option, especially if you have more teams go in through, for example, master bedroom. On top of that, you had the rest of the offense going in through master bedroom, for example, and, you know, armory stairs. They were able just to slowly pincer out those 2 defenders up above. They started pushing down on vertical. They hit the site with relative ease. Silent still doing tons of damage, and although Wimpy did have case dropped and he was very close to it trying to mother hen it, you still had, of course, the vertical like you mentioned, and you still had Luminosity being rather reserved as they had a 3v1 and they just did not want to throw that one away.
Well, Elyssar will be breaking the streak here, John. Not going to the same site twice. Heading down to the basement. It's laundry and supply again. Last time we were here, it was Elyssar who took it successfully. And and Silent, who was the last player standing and just tried to spray down as many players as he could before the time expired after what looked like it was a good start on a pillar execute, but what quickly fell apart when Elyssar just won the trade game. Wonder if Luminosity are going to change something up because of that, or if they're going to keep going that standard, really multifaceted basement approach where they're opening up all of these different angles and giving themselves several different options to push from.
Ooh, a close encounter by young Alec. Inrio just runs out, and Asian will punish him for that. The first entry, once again favoring Luminosity. One of your main roamers now gone, not able to fall back any longer, not hold those power positions when you get to the final minute. And young Alec, once again, having to worry about that verticality, but not having anyone to back him up as of right now. Wimpy already has a C4 toss somewhere. Maybe it's pre-placed, waiting for Kicks to get in just the perfect spot to detonate it, but we're not 100% sure. All that we know is that the mirror window has eventually opened up, and now Elyssar are deciding whether they want to fall back soon or just wait a couple more seconds to maybe find some sort of miracle kill to equalize.
Yeah, hoping that kill just walked into their arms here. You can see that they're all just sitting in corners on this first floor. They're not retreating normally like we would see in the past down towards that basement, and it's going to cost them rather than benefit them whatsoever. Losing Vivid, losing young Alec, and it's going to all fall on the shoulders of Wimpy and now just Giddy, who's finding himself in a 1v5, but instead Asian with a quick headshot. Luminosity finds themselves with a flawless round to close out their attacking half with a successful 4-2 split.
And when you have everyone on your team that can confidently frag like that, playing out in the open is a very big gamble that Elyssar took completely. They started with a run out. They're playing in Z hallway, absolutely no coverage essentially, especially when you had the vertical go down. The only safe place on that middle floor was kitchen, and it was just getting opened up as if Tim Allen was rocking that sledge pick. I mean, you have no other option except to probably fall back unless you want to keep throwing bodies, since Luminosity are just so strong at winning those gunfights when they're in the right place at the right time, and that was just a perfect example of that. A very vital round win for Luminosity. Cannot stress that enough, as now they take the advantage on their attack and can move over on the defensive side, probably only needing to win those default sites and probably taking away a victory that most of us overall in the talent pool did not expect from them.
Well, it's certainly not over yet, though. They still have a defensive half they're going to have to put together, and if Elyssar do what we expect them to do, they're going to come out swinging, and they're going to look equally as good as Luminosity did on their attacks now that they've shifted over to their attacking side as well. So can't quite draw any conclusions yet about the result of this game, but if a round or two transpires and Luminosity still find themselves on top, I think Brimstone will be happy that he changed his prediction at the last minute, and I think the rest of us might be looking a little bit foolish, but we'll wait and see. For now, it is Elyssar. They've got the ball in their court to change the pace of this game and to establish the rhythm that they're looking to rock with on their attacking side. Is it going to be like Luminosity, where they just open up as many things as possible as quickly as possible, or are they going to get hung up just a bit? That's what Asian's trying to do as he holds this extension and showers.
Trying to play as aggressive as he can. Actually opts to fall back. Not a horrible idea. You can still utilize those key barriers. They build up in value over time, similar to, you know, toxic smokes, Jamaica launchers, you name them. Any kind of utility you can use quite helpfully when that execute eventually comes into fruition. So not a bad call at all. And Kicks still having the fallback, of course, that hatch, the insurance policy essentially if too much pressure gets put on his back, can allow him just to play as aggro as he wants to, and then when he gets fished out, he can just drop down, even doing so before even breaking a drone. Can't really blame him. You've wasted about a minute, and you still have a majority of your util on this bottom floor. It's better safe than sorry at that point. So Elyssar, now they can begin to, you know, get these hatches opened up, similar to what Luminosity were doing when they were attacking this basement site, and begin to readjust once again, like we saw in that first half.
Giddy trying to pin down a roamer or two as he works his way in directly into T1 of Tower here on the first floor. He'll be joined by a teammate up above who was clearing out the rest of Tower, and actually he'll rotate himself around over towards the bunker side of things. He has Ash to worry about, who is sticking on the support role on the defense as well, from the Hibana now to the smoke. But playing this one more aggressively, shotgun close on the door rather than playing back in the corner. But Elyssar are hoping to get an idea of what's coming, trying to drone down the tower stairs, trying to approach from multiple angles before they actually send it in from any single position. But you can see from Giddy, he looks like he's rearing to go.
And he's trying to wait for Smoke to maybe get over-aggressive to work that entry, but so far, playing this waiting game, it's not going to work out, but now having backup from Vivid, that might give him the courage to step up, but Ashen so far seems unfazed as he pops out another Smoke to help out the rest of his team.
Yeah, smoking E-Box to prevent that drop, all while holding close on this bunker's door, overexposing themselves, though, and Giddy gets that kill. Elyssar now likely to use that as a springboard to now send it into the site. You've got Wimpy now playing close on E-Box, Inrio taking control of Pillar, and with bunker control firmly in the hands of the attack. It's only a matter of time before they make a move. Asian, though, steps up. Takes a nice long shot onto young Alec. You've got somebody now pushing into Elbow, trying to take back this control, but this bomb's going down from Vivid, and Luminosity, they've got to step up. There's Silent, just in the nick of time, denying the plants. Now it's Elyssar who have to make a move, and they are simply out of options and out of time. Luminosity hang on to that one by the skin of their teeth, but Silent denying the plant just in the nick of time to take the round.
Just having too many angles to worry about with not enough players. In that 3 versus 3, you had someone trying to hold down Highway from Pillar, someone watching over in Blue Bunker to make sure no one would, flank last second in through Elbow/Blue Bunker, because that's one of the most vulnerable spots for your planter. Silent just steps up out of nowhere, I think through the hatch potentially. That would be the only safe spot that man could go to stop the plant. He's able to kill the Habana, and at that point, when you've got the man advantage and you know the other 2 attackers are basically too far away to pick up the case, you just have to fall back and wait for the last 2 attackers to push you. You win those gunfights, or you just bleed out the clock when there's only a few seconds left to go. Really great job by Luminosity making that last second call and still keeping Elyssar at such a long distance, despite them knocking in on the doorframe to sight at that point, Jonah.
Well, that was quite a finish, but one that I think Luminosity probably wished it was a little bit cleaner, got a little bit closer than they might have expected, but when you give up that control, I mean, Elyssar are going to take it. They're not going to waste their time. It's something that Elyssar do really well, and something we talked about a little bit at the start of this game. Elyssar have been moving. They've been schmooving through maps. They've been taking control, and they've been really good at just getting that bomb down pretty quickly. That time, Luminosity, they allowed it to happen, but they denied it. I mean, just barely, but they were able to deny it at the last minute. So well done from them, and now they're going to be looking to continue that momentum with some more silent aggression. 16-2 right now. What can he do wrong? Doesn't seem like much. Just put the MX4 Storm in his hand and he'll go crazy. There it is again.
Silent but deadly, finding so much damage, and like you said, Jonah, they are just schmooving at this point. They are feeling themselves, and they are more than confident that they can take these gunfights and simply win them all together. Wimpy will try to make some magic happen over in the basement, but this is a very common thing you tend to see. Wimpy losing half his health from that M14. He tries to fall back, but Ash continues to double down on the aggression as once again, Luminosity, they are just in their element on one of their best maps we've seen them play countless times in Stage 1. And just like that, you've got a 5-on-3, little to no map control here for Elyssar, and they are pondering as to what they need to do next.
Pondering, but I'd also add, it feels like they're panicking a little bit, John. We saw hints of this at the end of their defensive half, where they all tried to sit in corners and just hope that somebody from Luminosity would walk into them. We saw it here again. You lose the opening pick, and so what do? You send somebody in the basement, Wimpy trying to surprise a defender, and he ends up losing his life. I mean, that kind of risk, you don't usually see Elyssar taking those risks and missing those opportunities, but now we've seen that twice just in this round alone. Now, of course, they are fighting their way back. They were able to get 1 kill onto Ash and take down the Aruni, but they're still in a man disadvantage. At 3v4, it's an uphill climb.
And you still need to worry about the roam presence as well. Again, look back at the beginning of the round. That was never dealt with. Silent is still creeping his way up Armory, and he's about to hit off a massive flank. The Finka falls. Young Alex still not finding any success in this match.
Silent, 17 kills, and, well, you know that he's going to find a couple more before the conclusion of this match. Inrio and Vivid, they now have to do all the work themselves. Asian is able to get the first and Kickthrow the second. Luminosity making it look easy in round number 8. They will continue to further this advantage and mount a 6-2 lead heading on to match point.
And one of the small things that Luminosity has always been really good at, just in general, even if they have been losing a lot of their maps, has always been that entry game. It hasn't been a point to note all that much because they were still losing a lot of maps. They've been having a lot of trouble closing out multiple games. But it seems like after the break, they've been able to mold their style of play off of being so individually skilled, where they're actually able to eventually get that team play knocked down and have a good idea as to how they need to play and how they need to adapt whenever something happens. You know, they don't have to worry about that basement floor nook, so they have to get a little more aggressive. They can hit these flanks constantly, especially since Elyssar are short on players in time, and it just cascaded into something beautiful to watch. And, you know, sometimes you get a little upset that your predictions are wrong. When I saw we were going to Oregon, I was thinking in my head, you know what, Luminosity, they have a great chance of winning this game. And finally, I think they've got all the gears turning. Everything is just working without any hassle for the most part. And now, like we saw in match number 1 today, Jonah, we've got one team pretty much on the back burner while the other one is just taking the bag and running with it at this point.
Yeah, firing on all cylinders. And I know coming into the half, the side swap, Luminosity on the defense, I still said it was anyone's game. And it's been 2 rounds since then, John, and, well, I don't think it's anybody's game anymore. I think Luminosity, they've got this one, whether it's now or in a few rounds from now. Just, we haven't seen enough from Elyssar to prove to us that they're going to be able to make some kind of comeback, especially with Silent playing the way that he is right now. I mean, how are you supposed to slow him down? He's 17 kills deep, and we're only 8 rounds in. That is unbelievable. More than 2 kills a round average for this hooligan. And, I mean, maybe we'll see if he can find that 20 bomb in a round or 2. But Luminosity, I'd say they can put it away soon. I mean, it is a match point after all. I wouldn't be surprised if they can do it here. Elyssar need to do something now, right? We haven't seen anybody step up on Elyssar enough to really pick one player that's going to make the difference, but one player who really could start contributing is young Alec. No kills right now. Needs to find something, and he will, as Silent, ironically, is the one to give his life away right on cue. But he's going to have to do more than that. He's going to have to start firing and really working with this team to make something happen for the remainder of this map.
Well, it seems like the king has finally fallen to young Alec at least, so there's a major sigh of relief for Elyssar. I like the addition of both the Gridlock and Nomad. It does deny a lot of potential for that flank and aggressive style of play, and then Elyssar can just focus on pretty much 1 point of the map, maybe 2, and just get the job done. Giddy, having so much map control already, is able to catch Asian off guard, and for once, we have Elyssar in a very commanding position on their attacks, and it's only been the first minute.
Yeah, really commanding position. 2 bodies dropped on the defense already. 2 others still upstairs on this extension, and only 1, it's just Ash, actually on the site itself. Elyssar are in a pretty good position to pounce if they so desire, but also they have enough bodies to pretty much do whatever they want. They could clear out this top floor and just push out these 2 remaining extended defenders just as easily. Or instead, they could just go directly for the site. I mean, there's Ash. Caught completely off guard by Wimpy, who is, I guess, not where Ash thought that he'd be. Young Alec now pushing into this top floor. Doesn't even have to do the work himself because Wimpy is just going to take down Kickthrow as he drops away to what he thought was safety, but he was just dropping into some waiting arms. Vivid now getting this bomb down, and, well, there it is. Wimpy with the back-to-back-to-back kills to finish off the round. But a clean finish for Elyssar as they stay alive here and change up the score now 6-3, but a 3-round margin is still there.
Yeah, well-needed round for Elyssar, but we have to see that consistency. We have to see more of those rounds for the attacking side because Luminosity, again, they just need 1 default win, and that is lights out for Elyssar. at least for this one match. They got another one later today. Hopefully they win that one for all the Elyssar fans there. You know, just all up in the air at that point. But focus on the now, I guess. It's probably a good idea for all of us, I suppose, including Luminosity, who in the moment, they seem still pretty strong altogether. Maybe getting a little overconfident. They might be a bit more reserved in this round now, having Elyssar once again take the time to read into how they're playing, and they will be able to counteract that pretty accordingly. So, for the most part, I could imagine we still see that roam game still again, trying to waste some time, maybe breaking a couple of drones here and there, because the info game has been pretty strong for Elyssar for the most part. So, besides that, we could probably just see, again, a little more passivity here by Luminosity, because, again, they probably don't want to start throwing those rounds, and they want to just close out this game as fast as they can.
I mean, the longer they keep this game going, the more Silent has a chance to get some kills. So
that's a fair point. Gotta get the morale boost up.
Right? That is one added touch, one potential benefit. But
a Twitter post for the day.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have a big old number. You want to have this one go all the way, maybe even overtime. But I'd rather think that Luminosity want to get the full points here, the full 3 if they can. They've had 2 close overtime losses. They'd rather get a regulation win to offset the points that they were unable to earn in these last 3 games. They're on a little bit of a losing streak, and until now, Elyssar have been on a bit of a winning streak, back-to-back wins after back-to-back losses, but it looks like things are going to change at the conclusion of this best of 1. 3 rounds is what Elyssar need to put together to just ascend this one to overtime and have a fighting chance, and they're going to have to fight their way through an aggressive, but not quite as aggressive Silent in that last round. But once again, young Alec finding his 2nd kill on the map will once again get the opener here.
Another entry here for the Sledge. Still a big one at that. A lot of those key barriers can be very impactful, again, when you want to go in for that final basement attack. You saw earlier a little small mistake being made by Giddy. Could have potentially broken all the utility over near elbow, really stressing Luminosity thin, especially since they just lost their inflatable shields, especially now the Asian Pardon was the first person to die. But still, it's not the end of the world as of right now. It just might have a bigger part to play when Elyssar begin to rotate down into that basement floor, when they still need to clear up Blue Bunker, and there's still a shield with several ADSs there to greet them.
Ooh, that Flores drone was well timed. Ash was looking the other way, and that deployable shield is no more. Without Asian in the mix, you no longer have those Kiba barriers to redeploy that protection in bunker, and so Ash is no longer going to be able to hold that position safely. This barricade is still up, as Elyssar have yet to actually push in, but once they open it, it's not a position that Ash should be holding if they value their life, that is. Because with Elyssar rearing around the corner, now getting some intel to work with, they're bound to make a push when they see that opening.
50 seconds to go. Someone's already underneath, but, well, it's just the Gemini gathering more information. They know kicks over in the back of Pillar, but with that smoke still doing alright, he can deny the Blue Bunker push and still hold elbow if he wants to, but now the shield being gone, it's a very big make-or-break decision, but Silent takes that role instead, both of them playing off each other currently.
Yeah, just playing hard in bunker, and Silent gets a kill through the wall. The head of Wimpy is just blown apart, but we're back in a 3v3. It is still anybody's game as we cross that 25-second mark. Silent holding down this long haul, trying to deny that crossfire that Elyssar are looking to establish before they actually get this bomb down. But young Alec, he's the one holding aggressively. Well-placed crosshair will take Silent out. Inrio on the follow-up takes care of Ash, and that C4, although it was perfectly placed for default, Vivid wasn't even there. Ferda now is the one who has to do it all and simply has too many angles to worry about, is able to take care of one of said angles, but it's the pistol from young Alec from behind to do him in and to keep Elyssar in the mix for a bit longer.
And for Elyssar, they realized that they had to still continue that aggression. They couldn't just hold those passive long angles in the middle of Blue Bunker, for example. They couldn't just hold the back of Pillar. They had to continue to push Luminosity back to actually get enough map control to get that defuser down without having to worry about that potential flank, without having to worry about the timer being a huge problem. Once again, like it was last time we saw that basement site in play, a really smart play by Elyssar altogether. And although we had a couple of kerfuffles over near elbow, it was still Elyssar to remove that portion of the basement from the hands of the defense, which allowed them to, again, create more space to allow that plant to go down safely and also work a couple of kills as well, and still have that really well-coordinated team play on top of both young Alec and the player inside of Elbow directly as well, forcing a really tough predicament in that 1v3.
Luminosity taking this timeout, a well-timed timeout as well. They're not waiting until Elyssar are within 1, but now that Elyssar have shown that they are very much in this fight, Luminosity are hoping to 1, stall out some of that momentum, and 2, figure out exactly what they need to adjust to secure this regulation win. Getting troublingly close if you're Luminosity right now. They've got to keep an eye on what they can do to stop this. Going to basement again, back-to-back, which is a little surprising considering that Luminosity have had very strong success on both the basement and the dorms site previously. But the benefit of this site is that they just saw the Elyssar attack. They just saw how Elyssar adjusted from that first time around, that first site rotation. And so Luminosity should, in theory, be able to make some adjustments of their own.
Well, fingers crossed, of course. Even for Elyssar, though, they do not have the exact same lineup. You know, they were relying a bit heavily on that Flores when trying to clear out Elbow, for example. They've now opted off that completely. Giddy is now on the Twitch, which, when you have a Mira in play, that's not a bad idea, and a heavy lack of a Mute. I don't think we've seen Mute really in play all that much, except for when Kids in Dorms has been played by either side. So potentially sneaking this Twitch drone in to break some of those mirror windows, that could be a huge asset. There goes the first one. No one in closet. It could be both done in the span of 40 seconds, and it is. A great call by Giddy to make that play by acknowledging there's been no Mute in play in the basement.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. I mean, you pick the Twitch, and apparently you just walk the drone into the site completely uninterrupted and take care of both mirror windows. That is extremely well played, and that will force Luminosity to make the smart, and I'm probably assuming for Luminosity, frustrating decision to back off towards the site immediately. They didn't have a lot of freedom to dance around up above because the protection down below was insufficient. You can't leave the site exposed when you don't have those crucial power positions to maintain. Yet he's still doing great work with this Twitch drone. I mean, the amount of value that he's gotten out of this piece of primary utility is insane.
It's just unbelievable how much he's been able to destroy. And no one's actually broken the Twitch drone, so depending if those tasers can get recharged in a feasible amount of time, there is still potential for him to break more utility and really let the fact that there are 6 grenades on the board just reign and true and make it a nightmare for Luminosity when we dive deeper past this 80-second threshold.
Oh, an interesting Kiba barrier downstairs in Pillar. Love to take a look at that again. It looked like it was set up to deny potentially an angle from tower. We couldn't quite see it from that third-person view, but we just saw, I believe that was Wimpy using that Gone 6 to actually remove that barrier. So it was an attempt to deny a long angle from those tower stairs, but now that the Kiba barrier has been dealt with, Luminosity are going to have to take these fights the old-fashioned way. Ash will do that, and do it successfully, I might add. Taking a lot of damage, sure, but dealing with Giddy at this point before the execute can begin, that's a great way to set themselves up for success.
We got Alex still going in for those grenade preps. I believe an ADS just managed to catch it, though, and there might still be one at the ready with that blue light indicator. No, and the magnet will catch it, but still, it's in close enough proximity to break everything, yet the Mamai still remains strong behind that freezer box.
Oh, but there's some pillars presence now. It was just a Gemini clone, but Inrio quick to follow it up, and it looked like he had the advantage there, but Asian turns it on its head. Kickstro and Silent each get one. It's all on Vivid's shoulders now. He's got to find this ace, and he gets only 1 of 5 kills that he would have required. Luminosity, a huge lead early, and they let Elyssar creep back in, but they stop it before it could get too scary. 7-4 is still a strong win. The full 3 points for Luminosity as they try to get themselves back on the right track.
Yeah, just leapfrogging over several teams now. They were, I believe, 8th place, if not 9th, and now they have probably secured a much safer spot and probably don't have to worry about, the relegation match, perhaps, depending if they continue this forward trend throughout the rest of stage number 2. But in general, Luminosity, again, despite having a sub today, they just played to their strengths. They were getting aggressive at the right times. They were very coordinated. And Elyssar, they kind of allowed them just to do their own thing. Although we did see, changes made by Elyssar, they weren't made at the right time. And similar to Aerial Rise, they just threw away too many rounds. And although this map is good for both Elyssar and LG, it might have just been a little more favorable towards LG. So I bet Jim is going to be very happy when we go back to the analyst desk. And honestly, although I lost, I'm still really happy too, because Luminosity, they needed these changes, and finally they've made them.
Yeah, and as we pass it back to them, I'll leave them with one final thought, because it's something that we brought up earlier in this map. It was that Luminosity, they struggle with that map control, and Elyssar, they should have it pretty down pat. It looked like Elyssar was struggling with the issues that Luminosity were struggling with the past, and Luminosity suddenly fixed them. I wonder what they have to say about that. We'll toss it back to them.
Cookies, maybe you can further Jonah's point there, but before you do, just want to say, you thought it was crazy, okay? I'm not crazy. I got it right.
That whole segment is like, this is the worst part. Someone's either gonna clip that or say something. You know what? I don't care, because you know what? If you had any sensible reason in your brain, you would have no reason to think that LG with a sub. This was like news to us. This Ashiana guy, he comes in. He didn't really do all that, kill-wise, but he's a sub. You expect a team like Elyssar to just take care of business. And unfortunately, this game, dude, Alec, he came alive towards the end. I'll give him that. But Alec was kind of a traffic cone today, which it's happened a lot on Oregon lately. And just in general, Elyssar just losing a defensive half to start the game, on Oregon is unheard of. It happened last stage against West Garfield, actually. Mm-hmm. But over the history of with this team, they're usually really solid to start on defense, and especially in Oregon. It's just that identity is kind of eroding as time goes along. And yeah, Silent went 20-4.
Yeah.
And that's top 5 player right there.
But as Connor, as you'll have everyone know, there were 6 impactless frags there, so let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they were not entry kills, they were exit frags. They were the complete and utter opposite. We're sure you can say, oh, you can subtract it, but then he would be 14-4, which is still pretty dang good and a very high rating. In stark contrast to what we see on the side of Elyssar, where everybody had a pretty poor performance. We already touched on young Alec. We don't want to beat him too much when he's down, but the biggest thing would be Giddy 1-4. That's probably the biggest thing, because a lot of those deaths were on the defensive side, giving up map control, like Jonah was saying, where for Luminosity, probably the biggest factor for this game, the biggest aspect of what they improved upon was a simple little trade game, but not bodies. They were trading drones for map control, which was really nice to see, where they weren't necessarily playing for picks as much. They were playing a lot more structured, and that seemed to be the kryptonite for the side of Elyssar, which even with the 2-week break, or week and a half break, however long, their old issues continue to resurge time and time again.
Mm-hmm. Well, even though I don't believe we're worthy at this moment in time, we are going to be speaking to Silent, asking him about, himself and his team's effort today. Silent, I hope you have the number of a good chiropractor, because I think you're going to have a lot of back issues after this game. What a performance. What were you feeling today? What were you on?
I was kind of nervous before the game, but it's just another game. And coming out playing with Ash, it's good. He's a great player, great joner. It's a team effort. I would have done anything if it wasn't for Kicks or Julian or Ash or my joners, or even Asian joining me in Westside. It's a team effort.
Mm-hmm. Now, 2 weeks off, is that a big part of this win today? Was that time to get things in order to get a win that was as impressive as this?
I don't think it was, because we actually got word that Eddie was not playing 1 week in. So we actually had to practice with Ash, basically no strats, just going out there playing, and we taught Ash some strats. we scrimmed for him with like a week, and you know everything worked out. Ash is a great player.
Now, obviously, the team doesn't have the points or the stat lines that it was maybe hoping for during this stage. What were some of the issues that have been affecting you guys, and were you able to address some of those?
We definitely were. You know, some were internal, some, you know, every team has their own problems, but we definitely fixed it. I would like to say, you know, we got it sorted.
Now, you guys obviously had a wicked stage 1 coming out on top. Do you let this get to you a little bit, having a slow start to stage 2? Or do you just say to yourselves, look, we still got a lot of points in the bank overall for the stage? What's your approach?
You know, losing is obviously not fun, but, you know, people like to talk trash, say it was a fluke. It's whatever. You know, we keep our head down. We keep doing what we do. We keep practicing. You know, when we come up on top, people come back to us just like nothing happened, keep fanboying. So it's whatever.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Silent, and best of luck. I'm hoping for an upswing from you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Have a good one. Man, 20-4 on the scoreboard. Then he comes in and kills an interview like that. What can't this guy do today? He said he was nervous. I don't think he had any nerves at all. Anyways, that was an amazing game. So we've had what? A 7-3 game today, a 7-4. We are flying through it. Not what we've been used to so far in stage 2, but we'll see if we can go as quickly through the rest of the day. With the next match coming up is that third one of the day. It's going to be One Shot taking on Aqualix. These two teams are hot. You're not going to want to miss it.